Hello, everyone. Welcome to this 11 o'clock panel discussion, Therapies and Theranostics in Medical Imaging. So we've got a great panel for you today. They're going to talk about their companies and the new advances in radiation medicine and imaging and how they're joining together for some great new treatment capabilities. But before we start, I'd like to first introduce Amy Lemire-Stoops, who is from J.P. Cullen, who is sponsoring this session. She'll just say a few words. Thank you.
Thanks and welcome back, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Amy Lemire-Stoops, and I'm the Madison Division Director at J.P. Cullen, a fifth-generation, family-owned and Wisconsin-grown construction management firm started in 1892. 1892. That's a long time. I've been with the firm for just a little over a year, and during my interview for my position, I did some research on the J.P. Cullen mission statement and was really impressed with their mission of to identify, hire, train, and retain the best people to serve our customers. While I wasn't necessarily looking for a hammer reference, you don't find a lot of construction firms so focused on people. But as the Madison Division Director, my job is customer service, and my team specializes in catering to the needs of the healthcare, lab, research, and science and tech market. That's a lot of words that all intersect and focus on the betterment of society. As I was thinking about this introduction, I decided to also research the company mission statements associated with our panelists, and was impressed by the common message of progress, care, community, and compassion. From sustainable environmental research to improving patient care, outcomes, and life expectancy, this is research, innovation, products, and procedures that affect and benefit all of us. So with that, it is my honor to be representing a company with such strong values in a room surrounded with so many like-minded individuals and introducing the Therapies and Theranostics in Medical Imaging panel discussion with moderator Sue Wallace, CEO of Voximity, whose mission is to fight cancer by making it personal. Thank you.
Well, welcome for all of us and for all of you and at this great day today with BioForward. And I'm Sue Wallace, as they said, moderating this session today. And I just couldn't be more excited, honestly, about all of you learning about how important the work is that all of these companies are doing. And I really hope you pay attention because, I am sorry to say we're fighting cancer, and the exciting therapies that these companies are bringing forward, they're new, they're now, and they will touch probably every one of your families at some point. And so they're really making a difference for all of us. And I'm really excited to share more of that with you. So I wanted to give you a little introduction to frame what they do, and then I'm going to hand it over to our amazing panelists. But when we talk about cancer, just as a reminder, there's different stages of cancer, we know that. And in the early stages, we're over here on the left side of the slide, and you have a localized tumor in one location maybe, and they'll try to remove that with surgery. They might try to sort of blast it out with an external beam radiation therapy treatment. But unfortunately, that doesn't always solve the problem, and you move to more advanced stages of disease where it starts to spread throughout the body. Most of you know there's lots of chemotherapy options, and most of you know that there's some downsides to chemotherapy, right? Because it's not only killing the tumors, sometimes it's killing other things too. And so there's been a trend now to move towards these targeted therapies on the right. And this is where Theranostics as a field lives. We're trying to go more directly after those tumors that have spread everywhere in your body. and still spare the other healthy tissues and organs. That's the next level of improved cancer care. Sometimes that allows us, even if you can't achieve full cure of those tumors, now you can live with the disease, right? We're talking more about overall survival and not just cure or not cure. So there's a lot of excitement. Now, I just have one more thing I want to share before I hand it off, which is to decipher this crazy word Theranostics for you. So if you haven't thought about it, it's a combination of two words, therapy and diagnostics, in reverse order, just to make it confusing. But the reason they've blended those two words together is because what's unique in Theranostics, and this is really exciting, relatively new science, is they can use the same drug to diagnose the disease as they can use to treat it. But there's a little bit of a trick involved, right? So first we need to seek it out and find it. And so on this image on the left, this is a diagnostic scan. You're seeing where a safe form of this particular drug, this is a prostate drug. There's a really new exciting prostate theranostic drug has come out this year. So you'll probably hear a theme of prostate today a little bit from this group, but there are other diseases we treat as well. But in this case, we've tagged that drug with a safe form of radiation. So the imaging scanner can see where the drug goes, but it's not delivering any damage to any of those tissues, not the tumors or the safe, healthy tissues, but we can confirm up front, yes, this is a patient that will respond well to this drug. We see that it does locate itself where the tumors are. Most of the black you see is tumors, I'm sorry to say, in this patient. This is a really sick person. But it's a quick, safe check we can do. Now we say, we want to move ahead with therapy. We take the same drug, but we move to the right, and we tag it with a different kind of radiation that is destructive. And now we know it goes directly to all those tumors. The radiation doesn't travel very far, so it gives you like a localized treatment of radiation in each tumor, but it's sparing all of those other healthy tissues. And that's what allows it to be targeted, and yet to seek out wherever that disease is inside the body using your own natural metabolism. You know, and if you think about the COVID experience we just all went through, one thing we know is everybody's body reacts differently to things that go in our bodies, right? And so this is really what's so powerful about Theranostics. The physicians can see ahead of time how this drug is going to work for you. You're not just a subject of population averaging anymore. We can really personalize the care and really optimize the treatment. So that's the vocabulary and a little bit of the framework. And I'm going to let these fine gentlemen talk a little bit about what each of them is doing to contribute to that. And we're going to start on the far end, and Chris is going to talk to us about Shine, what they're doing.
Thanks, Sue. Good morning, everybody. I think you took a lot of my opening comments here. But I'm Chris Fessel, Shine Technologies, and I look after our therapeutics program. I joined Shine earlier this year, and immediately before that, I actually spent several years in the medical isotope business with GE Healthcare. And I think that's a great segue. Well, I think we'll talk later about how the market is growing, how our workforce is growing, and really just the mobility of the talent we have is just a tremendous asset to the southern Wisconsin region here. I'm pretty sure it's going to come up later as well. So Shine, we're located down in Janesville, and our goal is quite simply, we want to be the power behind these precision cancer targeting technologies out there. We want to impact as many lives, save as many lives as possible. And how do we do that? We partner with other pharmaceutical companies who have the expertise that build the molecules, that build the drug, that can identify and locate the cancers in the body. At Shine, we produce, it's an isotope, lutetium-177, and it's the payload that you see here in this upper left diagram. That's the payload. So when it's paired with the drug from our pharmaceutical partners, they find it, they locate it, and then once it's there, our payload, the lutetium isotope, sits there and it irradiates that cancer cell. At a minimum, it's either at least changing or damaging it, and in the best case, it's actually killing that cancer cell altogether, no matter where it is in the body. Now, what uniquely positions Shine is we're preparing to make our own raw materials, which will greatly eliminate a lot of the logistical and, quite frankly, some of the geopolitical issues we have with the supply chain in our industry. So we're gearing up to do that and looking forward to that as well. So why do we do this? And really tagging on to what Sue said, for me personally, it's all about the purpose of what we're trying to do here. And if you look at these images in the lower right hand, very similar to what Sue just showed, again, The gentleman here on the far left, February 2016, just riddled with cancer. This is metastatic stage 4 prostate cancer, metastasized throughout the entire body. Then the subsequent pictures show dramatic results. And yeah, biology is a funny thing. 2 patients won't respond the same way, but this is what's possible. This is what clinical studies are showing, and this is what's happening in compassionate care and new clinical trials around the globe right now. And this is what excites me. This is why I'm excited to be at Shine. I'm super happy to be part of this panel today, and I'm looking forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Corey, what are you doing at GE these days?
Or Jamie.
I'm sorry, Jamie. Sorry.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie McGoy. I'm with GE Healthcare. And again, really glad to be here today. GE Healthcare is at the very exciting kind of point, and I think a historic point. If you haven't heard in the news, we're about to spin out into a standalone healthcare company at the beginning of next year. And what's awesome about that is you get to kind of rethink a bit kind of what you want your identity to be as you kind of look forward in the healthcare space as a kind of standalone entity. And so one of the strategic focus areas for GE Healthcare as we look forward is really around precision innovation. And precision innovation is really being precise on the diagnostic side, bringing precision to the therapeutic side, bringing precision to the monitoring of those patients kind of immediately after the treatment's administered and over their life to follow that patient forward. All of what I just said is the exact definition that Sue and Chris gave for Theranostics. And so all that to say is Theranostics is a core kind of priority for GE Healthcare as we look forward. We're so excited for 2 big reasons. The same reason that I think all the panel is the impact that this new space in healthcare can have on patient outcomes and extending the longer term survival and hopefully curing patients. I think that is why we all come to work every day in healthcare. So that's one. And then the second is what you see on the slide here. At GE Healthcare, we're really built to help healthcare providers like Zach and many others along this entire pathway, because within GE Healthcare, we have a pharmaceutical business that, as Sue said and Chris said, you've got to design and figure out how to manufacture these individualized targeted treatments. And so we have a business that has done that for more than 70 years. And so we know how to create these molecules, manufacture them, then distribute them out to healthcare providers to be able to leverage. And on the right side, we've got an imaging business that has the technologies to be able to provide the great images that you've seen on the screen so far today. We have an oncology solutions business that thinks about how do you, not individual pieces of equipment, but how do you actually connect the different data and decisions across that patient journey to deliver the absolute best patient and staff experience at the end of the day. And then we have a digital business that I think you've probably heard artificial intelligence mentioned in the space. Is I think a very exciting space to help solve specific challenges across that pathway. And so when you put all those pieces together, we think that we could really have some technologies, tools, people, processes that really can help in this Theranostics and personalized kind of innovation space. So that's why we're excited, and I'll turn it over to Corey.
Hello, I'm Corey Lawson from Accuray. I lead product strategy for the company. You'll hear the words precision and personalization quite a bit throughout this session. And at Accuray, we're absolutely no different in participating in that, though our bend is a little bit different than some of the other companies that you'll be hearing about today. We are directly involved in the radiation therapy aspect of it. And when it comes to theragnostics, really at the heart of theragnostics, it's the ability to better target the cancerous tissue, and better avoid the normal healthy tissue. So when you look at a typical progression of a patient through the system, I'll give you that perspective real quick, and then as well how we participate. So first you've got screening. In the case of a prostate cancer patient, it'd be a PSA screening. Then there's diagnosis, where a biopsy is obtained, and then perhaps a PET CT. So you're looking at making positive diagnosis and then extent of disease. The tumor board meets to figure out how to treat a patient, and then the treatment with radiation if that is part of the plan. And with that treatment, we would get a diagnostic image using perhaps Jamie's, one of the diagnostic imaging systems from General Electric, make a treatment plan premised on that image, and what we would do is we would contour the target. Now, they go ahead, they do quality assurance to make sure it's deliverable, and then every day that patient comes in, and it may be a single treatment, which would be considered a radiosurgical ablative treatment, or it could be upwards of 40 different deliveries over 40 different days. Now, when you get into most patients, it's fractionated or delivered over several days. Interesting thing is patients actually change from day to day. So what do we do about that? Well, going back to Theranostics, it's about having really, really good imaging on board with the treatment system so that you can see those images from day to day and adjust the plan from day to day so that you are targeting only that tumor and avoiding the normal healthy tissues. Now that's really where we're marrying two technologies that have historically been separate into one, and presumably, hopefully, at the end of this, there's a great outcome for the patient. And then you go into the final aspect, which is the survivorship, okay? So with that, I want to turn it over to Zach. Thank you. Look forward to the continued conversation today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to present here today, and it's an honor to be up here with these luminaries in Theranostics from the area here. As will, I think, come out today in our discussion, part of the reason we're here in this forum is because Wisconsin is particularly strong in Theranostics. These things are done across the country, across the globe, but Wisconsin is a hotspot for theranostic development and research. And one of the major drivers and the reasons behind that is the University of Wisconsin. And so I don't think it's an overstatement to say that both Accuray and Shine have roots in University of Wisconsin technologies. And this innovation coming from the university and sort of the mission of the university to serve the state of Wisconsin and develop technologies for both industrial applications and for the improvement of patient care is part of the reasons why we're here today to talk about Theranostics at this location. And one of those features at the University of Wisconsin that's a particular strength is our medical physics department. We have the #1 ranked, the largest medical physics program in the world. Approximately 1 out of every 3 medical physicists trained at the University of Wisconsin, of those currently out in practice. The university brings together tremendous technologies related to Theranostics, both from imaging as well as dosimetry, and we see members of industry here that are leading those efforts in commercializing these. It's really important, I think, to recognize that these are collaborations that the university and these industries have that are essential. We both play critical roles in this. The university and our academics are not designed or intended to commercialize products, but can do some of the fundamental research that leads to opportunities for commercialization. The university has tremendous capabilities that are very unique in terms of developing new theranostic agents. We have our own cyclotron and produce some very rare types of radioisotopes that may have distinct advantages that we investigate in the laboratory setting. And we have the capability to make these into pharmaceuticals, at least for the purpose of testing them in preclinical studies. And we do that to really do some of the early stage research around this sphere. For example, shown in the upper picture here, this is a person's pet dog that developed cancer. And because we have strengths not only clinically at the University of Wisconsin Carbone Cancer Center, but also in the veterinary oncology program here at the UW Vet School, we're able to often leap ahead farther than what we could do in a clinical trial by conducting clinical trials in companion species, in particular companion canines. So this is not, animal research per se, but actual treatment that we're giving for free to people's dogs that have developed cancer, too early in life and otherwise might not have access to cancer. But we can learn something from them and also use that to help translate into clinical discoveries. We have outstanding programs in radiation oncology, radiology, and really unique unparalleled resources here at the university for looking at some of the downstream effects of Theranostics. In particular, my own work, we're looking at how this affects immune responses against cancer and sort of next generation approaches where we're not just using Theranostics, but pairing them with immunotherapies. So I'll leave it at that, but wanted to highlight some of the work we've been doing in conjunction with many of these folks and their groups.
Thanks, Dr. Morris. Before we continue now, I want to remind the audience that there are 2 microphones at the head of these aisles, and if you've got a question, please come forward and we'll welcome your questions and take them for the panel. And if anybody's up in the balcony area, you'd have to come down, sorry, but please come down for the microphones. But so I'm just going to come back to Dr. Morris for 1 minute here to get us grounded and maybe a little bit of a specific around Theranostics so people can really relate to how this affects their lives. And let's take prostate cancer because it's a current hot topic. What is Theranostics really doing for these prostate cancer patients? Why is it important for them?
Yeah, prostate cancer is a great example to talk about when we want to talk about the possibilities or imagine the potential of Theranostics. So this is an entire field of a new form of cancer treatment. And potentially it could be applied to any cancer. But just this year we had an FDA approval of a new agent that specifically targets prostate cancer. And so there's, on the order of, you mentioned sort of the different spectrum of cancer. There's about 270,000 patients diagnosed with prostate cancer each year in the US. Fortunately, about 80% of those are early stage, and that's probably not at least where currently we're thinking Theranostics will find its application. But about 30 to 35,000 of those patients each year have metastatic disease, meaning it's spread to other parts of the body. And when that happens, historically we might think about chemotherapies, which kind of go throughout the body, but don't necessarily accumulate specifically in the tumor, so they have toxicities. Or we might use things like external beam to target individual sites, but then we're not hitting those microscopic cells that are going to show up in a few months. What Theranostics can do is be given intravenously and target to those tumors, both the ones we see on an image and the ones we don't see. And then, as was discussed, when they undergo that radioactive decay, they give radiation treatment to all of those sites. And what that study showed that led to the FDA approval was that it improved survival. So patients lived longer after they got this agent. So it's making a real difference in that population already.
And how are they feeling? We know people are pretty sick during chemo. Is it similar even when it's a good outcome?
Yeah, in general, these are well tolerated. They do have, like all treatments, the potential to create some toxicities or side effects. For that particular treatment, because this is given through the bloodstream, sometimes people's blood counts can temporarily decrease. Patients, whenever they get any form of radiation, also often report some degree of fatigue. And then many of the side effects that can happen from a theranostic happen because of either other areas where it tends to accumulate in addition to the tumor, or parts of the body that excrete it. So for example, if it's excreted in urine, there may be some risk to the kidneys, and we hydrate patients to flush that out. And then interestingly, this agent in particular that we're referring to happens to accumulate to some degree in the salivary glands, so patients know some dry mouth.
Mm-hmm. And I think you see that here, just to not scare people, like the 2 big black circles here, that's the kidneys. So that's that normal clearance you're talking about. That's not a great big tumor for this patient. And right up in here, it looks like there's great big tumors, but that's probably salivary glands, right? So that's normal side effect.
And a picture like that is a snapshot, but what's important to recognize is that as Chris was kind of alluding to, these agents decay over time. They have a half-life, and so because they are not only taken up but retained in tumors, a snapshot may show it passing through the kidney, but it's generally not staying there. It stays in the tumor, and so that's where groups like voximetry, the dosimetry that we perform, gives us more of a, not a snapshot, but a movie over time, and we can then calculate or determine how much radiation is going to be given to any given organ and the tumor. And one of the really nice features of Theranostics is that you can do that with those safe isotopes you mentioned, so that before you give it, you know where the agent is going to go and what the risks will be based on how much is going to the tumor versus how much is going to other sites.
All right, so I want to bring it back a little bit to the business side and maybe ask Chris to start. So what you're producing at Shine enables all the rest of us to do what we do at Theranostics. You're one of the core, that's the key to the drug. Why now? You know, why is this so important? Why is this field exploding now? What's your feeling?
And I think it's just been the evolution of research and clinical trials. I mean, quite frankly, if I go back, pre-COVID, 2018 or 2019, I was at a Theranostics conference in Ottawa. And at that time, a tremendous amount of research going on, but nothing was particularly in the lead. It was isotope A, isotope B, cancer A, cancer B, but a ton of excitement, and some of these images were still there of like, we're starting to see this, right? And then just earlier this year at the Society of Nuclear Medicine show, all of a sudden it's coming down to, the questions changed from, well, what isotope, what treatment, what cancer? It came down to, hey, we've got our top 4 or 5 isotopes. We're really focusing in. We were really close on FDA approval on a couple drugs. And hospitals, clinicians, and physicians were all asking, okay, well, how do we operationalize it? So even during COVID, just this wave of research happening, getting the results and saying, hey, this works. It's really been fascinating over just the last literally 2 or 3 years to see this develop.
So your business case, so to speak, coming from this is now, that's what's really taking out. Now you can justify it because you're seeing the results.
Yeah, it's great. It's the FDA approval obviously is proof in the pudding, right? The market demand is faster than a lot of people can supply right now. So it's a good problem to have. But I mean, fundamentally, it's good for humankind.
Yeah. So I want to tie this, because it's so interesting how these businesses tie together. So Jamie, tell us how what they're doing at Shine affects your business.
Yeah, I think like it's been alluded to, if we don't have the actual kind of radiopharmaceuticals, then we can't image anything on our PET scanners or our SPECT scanners, and so it's fundamentally critical to be able to identify where that disease is, the extent of the disease, and even get into some of the dosimetry downstream. But I think I fully agree on the why is it such a hot topic today? It's all because of the patient outcome impact that's being seen in the clinical trials today. There is no business if there isn't a direct impact on patients. And I think it's now reached the point with the recent approval that Zach mentioned for prostate cancer that it's now a much bigger kind of patient population that now has the opportunity to realize the benefit of that therapy. And so it's kind of got everyone excited on what the potential is. What else we see is, we've done some market research and there's some reports out there. Let's say, I'm just going to ballpark, maybe 100 companies that are active in producing these type of radiopharmaceuticals today across the globe. What we see in some of the market research is there's 100, almost double the companies that are active today or have been in the past that are entering into this space to invest dollars because of what we've seen in all these clinical trials to try to develop the next blockbuster, the next great therapy or treatment for patients. And so there's a significant amount of investment just across the entire industry that's going in. And then I think the next wave is, Zach talked about how this is mostly today, this prostate cancer therapy is focused on metastatic or more late stage disease. But some of the new molecules that are in the pipeline are looking to kind of move earlier in that treatment cycle, which will then open up even more opportunities to help patients, either eliminate or cure that disease. And that's, I think, exciting as well. So we see it as there's a ton of excitement in the industry today around the recent approval opening up to a lot more patient opportunity to realize those benefits. But we see in the next couple decades of opportunity, if these radiopharmaceuticals continue to be positive in the trials that they're undergoing, Chris continues to make the supply available to everybody, as well as others. And then we've got the right imaging equipment and the right treatment planning equipment. It's really a space that I think is going to bring tremendous patient benefit for decades to come. And that's why we're excited about it. And as you said, the business case, if you take it back to that side, is much easier to build around that. But it really does start with kind of what the patient benefit is at the foundation.
And what we're seeing with that also is the clinical trials and the biologic information continues to come where the next wave of research is happening where it's combination theories. And Zach, you kind of tipped on this earlier. So it's You know, you're not maybe, for patient A, they may go through a complete course of the lutetium product. Patient B, all of a sudden, there may be a combination of, you know, maybe 1 or 2 treatments of that, but then a different type of treatment. And that research is just going to continue to accelerate the curve of really how do you determine personalized precision medicine for each person, driving that outcome.
Well, and I was going to ask Corey to comment on that a little bit, because a lot of what the Accuray products do are really effective in these earlier stages of the disease we talked about, when it's more localized, you can go after it. So how does this advancement on the theranostic side affect your business? Is it going to fit together, or is it competition for you?
It is not competition. It will definitely work together very, very well. In fact, you know, today, if you look at typical population, about 55% of patients diagnosed with cancer get radiotherapy either solo or in combination with other therapies. I see this as definitely expanding the horizon for making both types of therapies more effective. As you say, a lot of radiotherapy is for early stage cancer. But when you couple in some of the radiobiologics, it absolutely helps magnify the therapeutic effect for these very sick patients.
So can you expand on that from the clinic?
Well, yeah, just to expand on that, I was talking with Corey just backstage about, we just ran a clinical trial, for example, to test these types of combinations, because both external beam and potentially Theranostics have their strengths and weaknesses, and to my mind, they're very much complementary. With external beam, we can focus dose on a target and really escalate that dose within the target. But our toxicities generally come from whatever structures are immediately around that. And so, for example, if we're treating in the head and neck, a base of tongue tumor, the salivary glands tend to be right nearby and can be an off-target toxicity. Whereas, as I mentioned, with a theranostic, most of our off-target toxicities come from, for example, kidney excretion or liver excretion of the agent itself. And so there's basically 0 dose from an external beam plan to the kidneys or liver, and vice versa. From a Theranostics treatment, there's very little dose to the immediately adjacent structures. And so when we pair these, we can actually give much more radiation to the tumor when we give these together, because their risk, organs at risk are much different. One is sort of biologically and one is spatially determined. So we just ran a study of this comparison in patients where we'd like to give more radiation when they've had a recurrence of a cancer in a previously radiated area, but we're limited in how much we can give. And I think this is a great opportunity to move forward.
Well, I know it's always good for the companies when the doctors say they think this is a good idea, so that's great to hear.
Thank you.
You know, I think in parallel with this session right now, somewhere upstairs, is they're talking about the Wisconsin Impact Report that just came out. And I think this group is here today because this Theranostics was highlighted in that report as an emerging cluster of, you know, companies, you know, with synergies really growing, and not just growing within the space, but probably driving growth of the space. So I just want to come back to that and say, how well equipped is Wisconsin as a state to feed your businesses with the right talent, resources, investors, whatever you need to continue to go after this? And I don't know who wants to go first on that one.
I'll take it.
Okay.
I think it's actually, Wisconsin is in a very good position, especially for companies like ours. Just to give a little perspective, 2 companies came together in 2011, TomoTherapy, which was Madison-based, and Accuray, which was California-based. And very recently, we brought in all operational aspects into Madison, and it was because of really 3 different things. The talent pool here in the Madison area, and Dr. Morris hit on exactly one of the key points. We have one of the best medical physics programs in all the world here in Madison. And because of that, we've got a talented pool of folks to choose from to become our employees. Not only that, the ecosystem here, there are a lot of different companies that participate in different forms of radiation within this general vicinity. General Electric being the largest. There's other companies like Sun Nuclear, was previously GAMX. You look at, below medical physics or different than medical physics, the techs that build these machines, there's a great knowledge base here in Madison. And then there's the economics. For us, rental space per square foot in Silicon Valley was just through the roof. And Madison, it's pretty good yet. So for us, Madison is a fantastic location to run the business out of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that you hit all the big points, right? I mean, from an education perspective, University of Wisconsin, not just the Madison campus, but really the whole feeder schools throughout the state, bring in your engineering, pharmaceutical talent into the workforce. But as mentioned, I came from GE Healthcare. GE's obviously one of the largest employers around, but having that technical skill set, and fundamentally, if you look at statistics, people in this area tend to stay in this area. So the more that we have this industry, the more we continue to grow, you're going to get that mobility between. So one, it's fresh ideas, but yet some experience that you're bringing, old dog, new tricks, right? And I think that's going to continue to help this region, help it continue to grow.
Yeah, and I just add, I mean, GE, and I learned the latest stats for our company in that biohealth report, but we've got more than 6,500 people based in Wisconsin at GE. We work with 1,000 different suppliers across the space, and so Wisconsin is absolutely critical to GE Healthcare. Plus the connection with everybody on the panel here, nothing in this space, and especially in Theranostics, we've had lots of discussions with healthcare providers across the United States and in some advisory boards. And it's clear that the innovation needed to continue to advance this field will not be possible by any single entity, institution, business. It's only going to happen by really connecting across kind of one another, which is fantastic in Wisconsin with all of these groups here on the panel to really help propel the space forward. And I think we were joking before this session in the backstage that there is a ton of opportunity for talent within Wisconsin to be part of the biohealth space and in which we're all working, to work in many different areas. So you can work, in the same general space at GE on a PET CT system. Chris mentioned he used to work at GE, so you can transfer between any one of these, companies or organizations here. And we've hired some great clinical technologists from UW-Madison over the years. So there's lots of kind of opportunities for, I think, talent within the state to find lots of new experiences, continue to learn, be challenged, and all be part of a space that was shown in the biohealth report that is, a double-digit growth space and one of the kind of most promising industries in Wisconsin. So I think it's a fantastic spot to be and a great opportunity for individuals to kind of continue to kind of propel their career forward.
I think that's a really good point, Jamie, that we don't talk about enough, is for the individuals, for the workers, having that rich ecosystem does allow them to move around and have different experiences in different companies. Did you work at GE?
I did.
Yeah, and I worked at GE. Did you work at GE?
No, I did not.
We've all of us at some point have been there, and it's just a great testament to that company that they really do bring in young talent. I mean, I went to the university. You made a comment about not
Young,
just
thank you.
W, right? Yeah. But you talked about the whole UW system, not just Madison, and that is true. I went to UW Milwaukee myself, and my first job was at GE, which kept me in the area, right? And been able to really grow and thrive through actually a lot of different companies and technologies here over those years. But so it's a win for both the companies and the people. I want to come back to something terrifying you said earlier, though. At least a little bit. You talked about this exploding great field, and there's lots of companies moving into it now. They're not all in Wisconsin. So maybe we've just answered this question indirectly, but should Wisconsin be nervous? How are we going to fare in that race? Does this ecosystem we talked about, is that enough to keep us ahead? How do you see, not just you, but that, are we going to hold our own? I guess that's my question.
I think we have to say yes, but no. I think just with the great work and not many other states or places in the U.S. have all of these components and such a critical mass of those teams together. I think to really come together and work together to advance the space. So I absolutely do think that Wisconsin will hold its own. And it's really built on, some of these partnerships beyond what we just said, right? We're talking to you, Sue, about oximetry, which came out of Madison and these spaces. So as long as we continue to have those discussions, establish those partnerships, work well together, I think it's, there's no doubt that it can kind of hold its own. With that, I would say we also have to, and I think we've spent a fair amount of time in the last, 6 months traveling across the U.S. on a bit of a Theranostics roadshow to really listen and learn from other kind of healthcare institutions on kind of how they view the field of Theranostics, where their biggest challenges are, and how we can all, as a group here in Wisconsin, help kind of solve some of those needs to continue to move the space forward. So, I think we have a fantastic core and a really unique spot in Theranostics within Wisconsin. I think we also have to make sure that our ears are open, we're listening to kind of challenges across the entire field. It's a little maybe different challenges maybe than Zach even faces at the University of Wisconsin, that maybe a private practice urology group faces, and how do they kind of build up a Theranostics practice. So we've got to listen, learn, and take that input in. And if we do that and have kind of our ears at the ground on kind of where the patients are and where the medicine is being practiced, then I think we kind of bring that together as part of the partnerships that we're forming, and we really can keep that leadership position in Wisconsin for a long time to come.
Yeah, and just to share my own comment now on my own question, as I'm thinking about it, I think that one of these, I'll call it strategic advantages we have is we've talked about the strength and depth of the science and the physics and that in this area. And, all of these technologies that we're all working on, take a long time to go from idea to we're getting it out even to be tested in the hands of the clinicians. And I think we have a big head start on that because we have such a strong, deep think tank here. And that's certainly been the experience at my company, Voximetry, which was probably in a pub somewhere in Madison around 2012. Somebody had a beer and said, we could fix that problem, and started thinking about it, then wrote a patent and then formed a startup. And now here we are, really helping move that field forward. So, so if somebody's getting in now, if they're just hearing the news now, we've got a 10-year jump on those people, right? So.
And we're still, I guess, beyond the technical side, because, yeah, we do have a great base with the universities, the technology that's already here, but as an operations person, there's still a great population base here for everything else to run the operation, to run the business. So, yes, I've got a big staff of nuclear engineers, chemical engineers, and so on, but you know what? We need, maintenance, mechanics, and so on. So, and that population center is here as well. So, in terms of running the full operation, oh yeah, this is the place to be.
Yeah, it's something I always remember. Rock Mackey is a name well known to maybe many in this room, but a serial entrepreneur, very successful, founder of Tomotherapy, now Accuray, and others. Founder of the business I ran at Philips, so he founded a lot of things. Anyhow, I saw him give a talk, this was years ago, and I'll probably quote him incorrectly, he can yell at me, but I remember him talking about the reason we had so much talent in these areas, and in engineering, I would say in general, at the University of Wisconsin, is that, all these kids come in, I'm gonna say, off the farms, not only have with a great work ethic, but they've been, fixing tractors or, looking at stuff that breaks from, from early on, and that they just come in with this core view of the world and, combined with a work ethic that really gives us a jump start. So I think those things about our ecosystem are real, they're tangible, and they're exciting. And we just have to make sure we keep fostering that and recognizing it and leveraging it, I think. But I want to flip this upside down for not the clinician side as much as the academic side for the University of Wisconsin, because I know, Zach, you're doing both research as well as clinical work. So you've got these kinds of collaborators right down the road from you. Does that give you a competitive advantage? Because unfortunately, academics is competitive, right? A bit in the research world. How does that affect you?
Yeah, it's a great environment for academic research as well. Certainly as a physician scientist, but I think most researchers, we want to see our findings make an impact. And so these types of opportunities to partner with and collaborate with industry are really raising the significance or the potential impact of our research. So we certainly seek that out and benefit from it. And in return, I think benefit those groups. I think it's a global world. And so, we have agreements not only with the folks in the area like you mentioned, but some of those global competitors. And so my own group, we have established or emerging interactions with Bayer in Germany and Telix in Australia and Point Biopharmas and others. So it's not that we only serve this area, but there are regional and geographic aspects that do provide additional opportunities to be more efficient in some local collaborations for sure. But the other point, was to come back to that question about competition, both academic and industry, is that on the physician side, the need is enormous. And so we're nowhere near a saturation point where we would say some new idea, innovation, improvement won't find a welcome market. It is far, far from that. We have a win in prostate cancer, and that is a partial win, meaning it improves survival. By no means did those patients, the majority of them, see anything near a cure. And so we are making progress, but there is so much yet to be done. And so in the setting of the clinic, any idea of competition being worrisome is far from reality.
Well, there's unfortunately plenty of sick patients to go around, right?
So
can you comment maybe what else is on the horizon besides prostate cancer? Who can we help? Other disease types,
Yeah, so some of the lowest hanging fruits are to look at the same agents but in different diseases where they may show uptake. In addition to prostate cancer, there's been an FDA approval for neuroendocrine tumors, which are a subset of lung cancers, that similarly showed a survival benefit. That particular agent may be taken up in some other tumor types, and so I know that there are trials opening to just look at different applications of those existing agents. And then the concept of the technology really is it could be applied across any tumor. We just need a tumor selective marker. There are antibody or other peptide or other types of ways to target almost every tumor that we could name. And so then it becomes just a matter of developing those, testing those, and demonstrating benefit. And that's a big leap because there are many ways that you could test something and not find a benefit, and probably a few where you could. And so there's a lot of careful science, clinical study that needs to go into this to show that it will actually benefit patients. But I think the proof of concept is where we've gotten to.
Yes.
And that is such an important first step.
Yeah. Question from the audience.
Hi, I work with inventors at UWM, and I was just curious, is there any market, having your expertise up there, for Theranostics with fluorescence tags, or are those too hard to detect with imaging?
Sorry, was that to a certain person?
And to any of you, just curious on if there's any market
know,
for a fluorescent tag, or is that, I mean, I know it's, you can see it in mice, but like, is that something you could even utilize in humans?
The short answer is yes. Fluorescent light doesn't penetrate to the same extent for imaging purposes, but I do know that we've had studies here where they've used an agent like that before an operation, and then during surgery used that to look at the surgical cavity to see if they could see any residual disease that they might not see with the naked eye. So that's one possible application for that.
Thank you.
Maybe just to add on to that, what's interesting about that question is because we've talked about this two-step process. You seek it out and then you treat it. And today we use what I call that safe form of radiation to seek it out. You could use something different, like if you could tag that same drug with the fluorescent as well as then a therapeutic radiation or something else. The concept, again, the proof of concept of the seek and then destroy is there, and then you can really start to play with different types of tags, so that's interesting.
That's a Metallica song. My question on that note is, are any of you currently researching carbon nanotubes and endothelial fullerenes doped with elements like gadolinium? And if you are, I can custom manufacture them. Please come see me. Let's collaborate.
Okay, good. Anybody excited about gadolinium? We can, maybe. We'll look you up. I had a question, and now you all distracted me. I'm getting too excited about things. I guess I wanted to come back to what are the risks, because we made this all sound really good. Maybe Chris has a view of this. Are there supply chain challenges? There's so many things that have to come together here. You need the different kinds of radiation, you need the right carrier, then you need the right imaging, and we're in this, coming out of the pandemic with all these fears about supply chain issues. Has that affected Shine supply chain? And then long term, is that going to affect the field?
It's a challenge. So knock on wood, everybody please. It hasn't impacted Shine at this point, but I can speak from my prior life at GE. It was a significant challenge, and for a couple different reasons. I mean, number one, just the general supply chain overall, the same global challenges you have everywhere. Just availability of manpower and raw materials. We would find it's not necessarily our suppliers, but their suppliers who have a challenge. So they have the workforce and the means to go forward, but you can't get the raw material that they need. And so you just compound on top of that. When you get into pharmaceutical manufacturing, not to sound flippant, but you're not buying these components off of Amazon, right? Filters and tube sets, product contact sets. And then once you go to, so you have a much smaller supplier base to begin with. Then when you get into the nuclear or radioactive space, it's even a tighter subset of that. So when there is a disruption, it can be quite big. And then you add COVID on top of that. So all things equal, radiopharm is a really small volume of pharmaceutical overall. And then we would find ourselves competing against Operation Warp Speed money. So it's very simply, we need 10 milliliter sterile glass vials. Well, who else needed those? Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, AstraZeneca. So all of a sudden, I don't care who you were, if you weren't named one of those three, you had difficulty getting product. Now, the good news is we're coming out of that. And generally speaking, the companies wanted to do what was good for Shine, GE, whoever it was at the time. So we're getting through those challenges, but it is just an inherent risk of being in a very niche market. The other challenge we have is, I mentioned at Shine, we are working through our own starting material. There are geopolitical risks. Our starting material, enriched ytterbium-176, generally speaking, comes out of Russia. Up to this point, it hasn't been a problem. That could change by the time we walk out of here. So, and that goes on for that's not unique to Shine, but it's unique to a lot of other materials and rare earth metals that, frankly, all of us use. So those are avenues we need to explore to try to, how do we improve and eliminate that risk, or at least greatly reduce it. And then on top of that, transportation. There's not a lot of couriers that will transport radioactive material around the United States. That's probably a good thing. Yeah. But then you get on top of that with manpower shortages, et cetera, that just still trickling down from COVID. It's from start to finish. You really have to stay on top of where you're getting materials, how are you shipping it, and ultimately everything in between.
And I maybe build on that. I think, if I just bring it back to the patient perspective, this whole theranostic space has to ensure that the right radiopharmaceutical gets to the right patient at the right time and kind of overcome some of these supply chain challenges that exist. And if you just take the Novartis prostate cancer therapeutic that was approved, it's called Pluvicto, but it's up to 6 doses every 6 weeks for the patient. And so once you start a patient, I'm not a physician, but once you start a patient on that course of treatment, you want to have the confidence that you're going to get that next kind of dose at the right time for the right patient. That's just with the radiotherapeutics that are approved today. So now if you just imagine these 100 other companies that I mentioned earlier that are investing in the space, there's 60 some radiotherapeutics that are in a phase 1 and beyond clinical trial today that potentially could come to market over the next 2 decades. The complexity that is going to be upon Zach and UW-Madison, every healthcare system's shoulders, I think is going to be significant. And how do you manage that? So my Amazon reference would be, maybe there is a need for a digital tool that could show you where that radiopharmaceutical is at any point in time for every single patient, to help give you the confidence that you need there, because of course with Amazon, you know where everything is at any point in time. So I think there's, again, an opportunity for innovation in the supply chain space in ensuring that ultimately the great value that's being shown out of some of these new therapies actually, gets to the patient and practically can help, achieve the outcomes that they were intended to do so. So I think there's still a lot of space in the innovation potential in the kind of supply chain space here.
He mentioned, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
Well, he mentioned a complexity for what's coming to the clinics to digest all this, which made me think is there a need for these centers of excellence, like like we have cancer centers and breast centers? Is there going to be theranostic centers, and what is UW doing about that?
Yeah, so I think there will be. These benefit from an infrastructure behind them that, at least initially will probably be centered around many academic medical centers. We are in the process of forming a institute for Theranostics and particle therapy within UW, and so it's certainly a focus and a priority within kind of the medical school, UW Carbone Cancer Center, and UW Health as entities there, and we kind of need components of all of those. In addition to the logistic aspects of the supply chain, there are logistic aspects of training new physicians, so residency training, fellowship training opportunities that our medical school will perform a role in. There's logistical aspects of the translational research here. Companies do trials and then ask us to gather, for example, radioactive urine and blood specimens, and housing this radioactive material creates challenges that we haven't had necessarily in hospitals before. So there is a lot of logistical aspects because of the radioactivity involved that creates challenges. And then many companies want to know, as do we, what happened in the body, in the tumor, and biopsying and performing all this stuff in the context of radioactivity just creates new challenges that need sort of partnerships and academic industry leadership to navigate.
Yep. For us, global supply chain may be a little bit different in impact than some of the other companies here. What we're manufacturing is big iron with a lot of electronics in it. First thing I'll say is typically these types of life-saving technologies have been pushed to the front of the line, even ahead of automotive and so forth, which has been good. But when you look at some of the strictures that COVID caused, and also Ukraine, you had mentioned Russia. When we're buying tungsten, and the three biggest producers in the world, one is Russia, the other one is China, and seventh is actually the Ukraine. That big Mariupol plant was the seventh largest producer. So what I'll say is we have definitely had our challenges, but we've met all those challenges. Our safety margin, though, has decreased. So we have to be really cognizant of this as we move forward.
Mm-hmm. So in the time we have left, I want to ask each of you, do you have one thought you want to leave us with? Just to kind of get a final comment from each of you, sort of wide open, but what would be your message, that you want these people to walk away with today, at least from your perspectives? Yeah, Chris gets to go first. He's on the end.
Thanks,
I didn't
Sue.
warn them that was coming,
Surprise.
sorry.
Yeah. I guess my reaction, I guess what I want to leave everybody else, this is a very purposeful industry. And, I will share, I'm a prostate cancer survivor myself, and this treatment wasn't an option for me a few years ago. And so I've always had a calling, and I've been in 100 different industries. I've been in the healthcare industry for about 15 years now, and specifically in the pharmaceutical side of it a few years. The purpose of what we do, it's just knowing that what you make is either you're scanning someone who needs an instant result, what we make is getting injected tomorrow and helping a patient. It just brings, it's a calling. So, and the fact that we have the skill sets, the technical base, the clinicians, everything, all the major components are here. This is a really special place. And if you want to do something that really makes a freaking difference, this is it.
Nice. Top that, Jamie.
I don't think I can. I think you summed it up well for the panel, because I was going to say, listen, it starts with the patient and the outcomes that can be achieved. And that's what's, I think, so exciting to us in the field of theranostics with all the growth potential that we've talked a little bit about. But the only way we're going to continue to bring some of the innovation and benefits is by working together. The good thing is Wisconsin has all these organizations, the great science and the clinical practices at the University of Wisconsin Medical School and hospital system as a foundation. And so I think, and the good thing is we all work together well, I think, and collaborate well and share ideas and kind of talk through things I think that's another benefit of some Wisconsin-based companies is collaborations that really are purposeful and end up achieving some great things at the end of the day. So I'm just rephrasing what Chris said so nicely, but I really think that is the key message I would share too. So
Everything they said, but I'll add that I think, when I look out 10 years from now, 20 years from now, there are going to be companies that are not yet in their inception phase that are going to spring to life in medicine. Every time we find a new technology or a new promising science, it opens doors, usually through the University of Wisconsin, but sometimes offshoots of the other businesses that exist today that solve additional problems that we never knew we had. So I'd say, in some ways, we've made great progress, but we're still in the cave, and there's great opportunity ahead.
Agreed.
Yeah, those are spot on. I think when you look at the history of medicine and science, you don't see sort of linear progress, right? You see sort of plateaus and then sudden leaps and then plateaus. And I think we've had a proof of concept here, and so we're on the accelerated rise of seeing this impact patients and society. And so it's an exciting time to be a part of this, but there is so much to be done. It's a great time for investment and innovation and intellectual input to this area because these things can fall flat if they don't have that behind them. But the potential here is for a lasting, benefit to cancer patients and maybe other diseases as well.
Good. And I really want to add selfishly my 2 cents worth here because there's so many important things happening. And what we're doing at Voximetry, we say we're fighting cancer by making it personal. And I really want you to hear this message so that you know to ask about it should someone in your family ever be in the position to take advantage of these treatments. And we're working with the university because the not perfect part of this story yet is that based on the science we've been able to do and the tools we've had so far, the standard of care for these prostate cancer patients and others is basically one size fits all. They did a clinical trial, everybody got the same dose, it was safe, so the FDA approved that. But I know Dr. Morris can see on all these individual patient images that this drug is behaving very differently, up to a 10-fold difference between 2 different individuals. And so what we've done at Voximetry is we've developed software that can measure that patient-specific, unique drug interaction so we can inform the clinicians for this patient, they need this many cycles and this much drug per cycle. And the early data is showing things like 71% improved tumor response, 16-month improved overall survival. And we're not done getting bigger and better data of these kinds of numbers, but that's with the same drug, right? So we're going to extend your life 16 months, 24 months on top of the improvements you already get from Theranostics, but just by tailoring that dose for you. So we're excited to be working on tools that can do that and really sort of, we don't make the drugs, but we make the drugs better is kind of how we like to think about it. And so this is part of this proof of concept to say we can truly personalize care now. That we're leading first in Theranostics because we can see radiation is this magic bullet that allows us to see what's happening inside there. But long term, there's exciting ideas about how maybe we can personalize other kinds of treatments and therapies too. So I'm just obviously proud of the work we're doing, but you can see the field is very personal for all of us because it is so important and we know it will affect our families at some point. And I want to make sure that's a takeaway for all of you. You are living in a great state, a great place with great talent. And you're going to get the best care here if you just know to ask for it. So I think we're pretty much out of time. So thanks to the panel for fantastic discussion. And thanks for your time.